Hi, welcome back for the second part of vocabulary, explicit and engaging instruction. So Monday when we were here, we talked about ways to, the first part of preparing for vocabulary instruction, and we talked about ways to select your vocabulary words that you wanted to teach. We said that the words that the authors of textbooks tell you to teach aren't always the best way to determine what your kids need. So did any of you try out these vocabulary strategies that we learned on Monday? Because I know some of you did vocabulary in your class today. So how did you go about selecting the words that you were going to teach to your kids? Anybody have anything that they'd like to share?
I use vocabulary, and actually we started a new unit and I always go over vocabulary. I generally learned from your last instruction on vocabulary that I go through vocabulary too fast and that I need to slow my instruction down and get input from the kids in regards to what words are best for them to learn. And as you said last time, we know the words and they don't. And some of the words they already know and we don't have to teach. So we need to be the best judge of those things.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, this book really empowered me as a teacher to decide what my kids need to know. I know them best. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody?
Yeah, we did vocab a few days ago. I started a new unit as well, probably the same unit as Jessica because we teach the same thing. There's a lot of words in this unit because it's all about text structures and expository stuff, and more than half of them they already know. They know what a title is, they know what bullet points are, so there's a lot of stuff that we really I didn't need to inundate them with all the excess stuff that they already knew, and the last several years I've just given it to them because it was on my list, and
yeah.
This time, it's just kind of like, oh, here's that bullet point. I just kind of like skim through the things that I think they know and then focus on really only make them study the things that I know they don't know.
Right, and that's what we talked about. How much time? We don't want to waste instructional time teaching them things that they already know. So if you think they already know this word, then you might do a brief overview, or you might not even touch on it at all. So, like you said, we don't want to inundate them with stuff that they already know. All right. So today, this time, we're going to be looking to find ways to convey the meanings to the kiddos. Once you've made your word selections, how are you going to get these meanings across to them? Because not all kids learn in the same way. So there might be different ways. Well, there has to be different ways in order to help them. So, determining how to convey the words and meanings. My friends Anita and Charlie have given us methods. They suggested many different ways in which we can convey the meanings of these words to our kiddos, depending on what grade level they are, what subject you're teaching, and I'm glad to have a math person with me today, thank you, and also on their maturity level. So this is all going to determine what method you're going to use to teach the kids these words. All right, so here are a couple that they suggested. Present a student-friendly explanation. Guide students in determining the critical attributes embedded in a glossary or text definition, using word parts, and recognizing cognates. And this is especially important for the ELLs. And then, of course, any combination of those. All right, so the first suggestion, present a student-friendly explanation. That sounds kind of obvious, but I'll be honest with you, I have not always done that in the past because I've had them look up the definition either in the glossary, at the bottom of their textbook if we were studying a fictional story and the words were at the bottom, or have them look it up in the dictionary and then read what it says, figure out the meaning of it. And shame on me. But again, sometimes we just need to see this in writing for us to realize that, hey, there's a better way to do this. And I need to figure it out. So thank you, Anita and Charlie. So this is especially important when teaching those Tier 2 words. The Tier 2 words are the words that are across the different contents, across the different contents. Like it might be words that you use in social studies and math and science and English. So the academic vocabulary words, it's written there right for me. All right, we make sure the definitions, we have to make sure that the definitions are easy for the kids to understand. We have to make them clear, we have to make them explicit. So we need to use language that they already know. And this means giving examples, okay? That's really important when we give them examples. So one of the words that we looked at on Monday was the word loitering. All right, when we ask them to look it up in the dictionary, they might find that lingering or loitering means to linger in an aimless way, to spend time idly. All right, so are they going to get anything from that?
No.
What do you think, Chelsea?
My kids don't even know linger, aimless, or idly.
Right, so if we say, copy this definition down and then use it 5 times in a sentence, they're not going to get anything from it because like you said, what is linger? Well, I don't know, aimless, idly. So we have to figure out a way to break this down for them. And that would be, one method would be to offer a student-friendly explanation in their own words. So we could tell them, you loiter when you sit. They know sit. They know stand. They know public place. They know mall. They know hall. They know school. So they know these words. So if we put these together to help form a definition, it's going to have a lot more meaning to them. You loiter when you sit or stand in a public place such as the mall or the halls at school with no real purpose or need. When you're just hanging out, you're loitering. So we've also then, when we use the student-friendly explanation, we've also used it in a sentence that helps them to relate, and it's a fine example of exactly what it means. So students will get this. Linger in an aimless way to spend time idly? Probably not. But when you're just sitting around, hanging out, doing nothing, that's you loitering. They'll understand that. All right, another method of getting the meanings of words to the kids is through helping guide them through the critical attributes. If they look the words up in the glossary, or if they look them up in the dictionary, again, they're going to find things that, as a whole, it may not make sense, but if we break it down with them, it may be that we can help them to analyze the different parts of the definition and then put it back together to form a better definition for them. So this approach is really good for those tier 3 words, and those tier 3 words are the content-specific words. You start by, like I said, if we look it up in the dictionary, and we need to go through and point out the important parts. Suppose in like an English class, the word independent clause. When I start talking about independent clauses to the kids, their faces turn white, their eyes glaze over, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So if we read the actual definition, it might look something like this. An independent clause is a clause that can stand alone as a complete thought. An independent clause, like all clauses, has a subject and a verb. But when we read it together like this, it just sounds like a lot of words, a lot of confusing words, and it doesn't have a whole lot of meaning to them. So if we break it down into the critical components, it's going to help them to acquire the meaning in smaller chunks. We can start with making sure that they write the word down that they're trying to learn, and then give them little parts at a time. So up here it says that it has a subject and a verb. So one of the critical attributes or critical parts of the definition is that it has a subject. And that looks easier right there already. An independent clause has a subject. Another critical part is it has a verb. And now it still looks easy. And if you give it to them small bits like this, now they can, they can synthesize this. Okay, I know what a subject is, I know what a verb is, they can put it together and say, okay, subject and verb, got it. And then you give them the third critical attribute here, which is it has to form a complete thought. And now they can take those 3 parts and easily put them back together to come up with a meaning that they can understand. That an independent clause has a subject, has a verb, and has a complete thought. All right, when we do it like this, it also gives, there's a lot of other advantages to using that method. Okay, listening to words and attributes supports the students' thinking as they have to analyze the meaning of it. Like I just said, they take the little pieces a little bit at a time, and they can figure out what a subject is, what a verb is, and then they put it together and understand that together it has to be a complete thought, not just, well, I guess not just an incomplete thought, which would be a whole different meaning. All right, and then another advantage to this vocabulary instruction would be the students can use the attributes as a checklist. I like this part. So now they can look at this definition as we've broken it down and determine, is this, okay, sorry.
Does this term like fit?
Yes, does this, yes.
All these
Can we check these things off?
Can I
and
check this off?
If yeah, cool. If not, then it's not
Yes.
that.
All right, so yes. Now, does this sentence, I'm trying to determine, is this sentence an independent clause? Does it have a subject? Check. Does it have a verb? Check. Does it make sense all by itself? Can it stand alone? No. Okay, well, this must not be an independent clause.
Yeah.
So it's easy for them then to help identify examples and non-examples. All right, and the last one is that this is an easy enough method that the kids can use it on their own, even without the teacher's guidance. Yeah, don't pay any attention to that goog down there. Goog. It's a goog strategy. I could have said that that's short for Google because you can Google parts of this. That's what I meant. All right. Another method that we can use to help get the meanings of words across to the students is to introduce the meaning of a word by exploring the embedded base words, prefixes, suffixes, and or roots. I'm always talking about this. Look at the root. Look at the root of this. Look at the prefix. Oh, this has a suffix on the end of it. But I shouldn't say never. I have steered away in the last couple of years from independently teaching these prefixes and suffixes and root meanings. And I really need to get back into that, especially since, as I said, sometimes we just need to see it written down, especially since this book was so empowering and Anita and Charlie said it's a good idea. All right, so we need to focus on those individual word parts or morphemes. It's always a good method to introduce the meanings of new words. All right, for example, prefixes. These are so helpful. These are small little morphemes or word parts, but they carry so much power in their meaning. And they're easy to locate. One of the great things about a prefix is it's right at the beginning of the word. It's also consistent in its pronunciation. Pre itself is a prefix, and it'll always be pre no matter what word it is attached to. It's always going to be pre. We don't ever have to think if it's pray or if it's pra or anything like that. Pre as a prefix is always going to be pre. So that makes it easier for the kids to grasp too. And it's always going to alter the meaning of the word. Prefixes, though, do not change the word part or the part of speech. Prefixes do not change the part of speech, but they do always alter the meaning. So that's why it's really important to have the kids study these prefixes. A study, I guess not really a study, but in looking at different prefixes with different words, 97% of all prefixed words with prefixes, are made up of 20 prefixes. So if we just teach those 20 prefixes to the kids, that's going to help them a lot, because a lot of times they'll know the base word, and if they then understand the prefix, it's going to help them to just establish new meanings to these new words that they encounter. So I thought this was kind of an amazing statistic here. 20 prefixes make up 97%. If you actually count these, though, there's a little bit more than 20. I think what the statistic meant is like ill, ear,
Yes.
all mean the same
Yeah.
thing. Yes. Okay. And a couple, yes, where I've got them separated by the colon or the semicolons. Okay. So un, re, and ill, ear, they all mean not.
Yeah.
M and N, they mean N.
Yeah.
Non, N and M again mean
In.
N. Okay? Over, miss, sub, pre, enter, for, D, trans. I didn't realize that this one was so popular. Or this one, but apparently they are.
Compress.
If you look it up, it gives you the actual number of words that,
Closure.
yes, that each one of these supports. All right. So I thought that was really exciting. And again, it made me realize that, hey, I need to get back to my red hot prefixes. I have tons of data, or not data, I have tons of material that I can get back to this, and I'm going to. Yes, ma'am?
The warm-up that I have, we learn 2 new prefixes or suffixes a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like that. I might have to get with you
It's
too.
not overwhelming, it's just a little bit at a time.
Yeah, and sometimes, I guess I think at 6th grade, sometimes I think that this is something that they should have learned in elementary school or something, but I know that that's not the truth either. So I just need to get back to, it's because some of the pages in my red hot root words are kind of childish looking.
Yeah.
And I feel like, okay, now they're in junior high, 6th grade's in junior high, but it's a good way to establish the space for them, so I need to get back with it. Suffixes. Suffixes are more abstract as they can change the base word's part of speech. Oftentimes when you add a suffix, it changes the part of speech, and that can kind of be overwhelming, confusing. I thought this word was a noun. You know, we force them to, well, we hope that they understand their parts of speech, and then when we switch something up, well, this you told me last week was a noun, and now you're telling me after.
Not when you end in ly.
Yes, not when they end in ly. Yes, so adding shun in any form, T-I-O-N, S-O-I-N, and I-O-N, and see, this is confusing too, because all of these are shuns, but yet they're spelled differently. So when they see it attached to a word, then it kind of confuses them. I thought this was makes the word a noun. Okay, now you're telling me this makes the word a noun. So yes, suffixes can be really scary for the kids, but also very important because once they learn the suffixes, it can also increase their vocabulary. Adding ly turns your adjectives into adverbs, and that's one of the easiest things to do, but then there's always those ones that aren't adverbs when they have an ly attached to it, so that's kind of tricky too. So we have to make sure that we take the time and explicitly tell them, show them examples of the ways that the ly changes the word from an adjective to an adverb, and then sometimes when it doesn't, like quick. Quick is an adjective. If you add ly to it, it turns it into quickly, which is an adverb. But there are some words when you add ly that don't do that. Can you think of any?
I've been trying to think of some. I'm just like, dolly.
Dolly, very good.
Dolly.
Yes, or the dolly, like you move.
Oh yeah, or a dolly.
Yeah, that helps you to move things, to transport things from one spot to another.
Dolly is a noun. It's not an adverb, and it was never an adjective.
Right, exactly. So it can, like all of English language, it can be a little bit difficult and hard to understand. All right, and then of course the Greek and Latin roots. I love the Greek and Latin roots, but sometimes they can be challenging too, because often the root has several different spellings, making it difficult to recognize. This one was something that I did not know.
I didn't either.
I learned this from Anita and Charlie, and then I looked it up on the internet. Yes, so here's an example. Have. It means to have, but then
just ab.
yes, it's ab here, so it doesn't even have the word. It doesn't even have the letter H in it. But ability, that means to have.
What if it was a hability?
Hability. What was if it was hability? You know what? At one point it probably started out as
probably
hability.
did. It probably started
Hability,
out as hability.
and then ability, and then they just dropped the H. Yeah.
Or ex-habit.
Ex-habit. Mm-hmm. Ex-habit, inhabit. It kind of makes sense because X and N are opposites. So yeah. So I'm thinking that they maybe started out like this, and then just throughout the time became this. But yes, this can be confusing. Well, that doesn't have that root in it. Well, actually it does right here, kind of spelled a little differently. So it can be confusing, but still we need to teach them, and that's why, because we want them to be able to recognize when it is being used and when it's confusing, just to help them to strengthen their vocabulary. And again, several of them have different meanings. But there's a benefit to the approach of teaching all these prefixes and roots and suffixes. Students learn meanings of word parts that can be used to identify unknown words, like the word cron. We've been using this. We studied this earlier this year, and now as we're talking about expository essays, And one of the patterns to,
Chronological.
yes, one of the patterns for
Sequence.
writing expository text is sequence. And
One of them is chronological.
yeah, numerical and then chronological. So my kids already all know, hey, that's time order. And so I was excited about that they actually had,
Does chron mean time?
yes, chron means time. Yes, so, yeah, so chronological, chronology,
Oh,
they all,
chronology. What is chronology? The study of time?
yeah.
Oh.
So, because logy would be,
The study of.
yeah, the
I
study
wonder
of.
what the study of time travel is called.
Okay, I don't know.
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, chronology trans chronology. I don't know. It might be something silly like
Double
that.
suffix.
Yes.
Or-
All right. Yeah. So another benefit to this approach of teaching roots and prefixes and suffixes is the study of the word parts increases the student's awareness of the whole word. So they can feel empowered themselves. Hey, I know this word part right here. So now I can take what I know about this part of the word and try with the context clues in the rest of the sentence to figure out what the rest of the word means. And I think that's really empowering then for the students. And it's going to help them to become more aware of word parts and want to be more excited about learning new vocabulary and want to do better. And in fact, be more aware of the words as a whole. All right. And another way, I just thought that was a really good one. And I'm really thankful that I read that in that book because, like I said, I kind of steered away from it because I didn't really think that it was all that important. Right? Why do we need to teach all these words? They probably learned this in elementary school. I don't know. I just tell them as we go along. But no, I know now that I need to be explicit in the instruction of the prefixes, suffixes, root words. All right, and again, another way that, another method for getting the meanings of words to the students is helping them to recognize cognates. This is especially important for English language learners. The cognates are words that are similar in spelling, meaning, and usage from one language to another. All right, so here's an example. Here's a simple one. Combination. I couldn't figure out how to put my accent on there. I probably spent an hour looking at my keyboard and data on the internet, but I couldn't figure it out. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. So combination in English. In Spanish, combinación, I don't even know how to say it, combinación. But it looks very similar. There's only one letter and an accent different. So if kids can speak Spanish, then it would be easy for them to be able to recognize combination, right? So, but you know what? Sometimes I find there might be a glitch in this theory because sometimes I find my 6th graders, they can speak it and they can hear it, but they don't read it real well. They're not really good at reading Spanish, so they may not actually recognize this, but we still can benefit from helping them to recognize the cognates. Now, sometimes though, these cognates aren't true cognates. In fact, they're false, what we call false cognates. But let me get back to this. There are dictionaries.
Cognate dictionaries?
No, I think, hang on. I'll go back to it. I'll go back to it at the end when I'm talking about it again. I'm so sorry. All right, so the false cognates, I want to get to this. So this would be one of the false cognates. Embarrassed. This is in English.
Embarazado means it's
Yes.
pregnant.
Don't give away my secret. All right, so embarrassed. All right, and then this is a word in Spanish. Embarazada. They look very, very similar.
Yeah.
But if you ask somebody, are you embarazada?
Are you pregnant?
Because you're trying to speak their language and show them how smart you are. You're asking them this, and then you might be the one that's really embarrassed. So we have to be careful with the false cognates. All right, so we want to teach kids the teach words to the kids, as we talked about Monday, that are going to be important to them, useful to them. So we want to teach the words to them that they can hear, that they'll read, that they'll write, and the ones that they're just going to be, that are going to be useful to them in the future. And remember to use examples and non-examples. That's important too. That's one thing that I do. I have a whole stack of pictures that are related to words. And I'm going to be more explicit in my instruction, which means I'm going to take more time in my preparation, which is what we're talking about here, and find those pictures that are going to be useful so that I can show them actual pictures to go along with the words and the sentence examples, and hope that this is going to help increase their vocabulary. Because again, we want to give them words to grow their, I like to say that word, personal lexicon, because it makes me feel a little bit smarter too, because I've now learned that new word. And I want to help them to grow their personal lexicon, because ultimately, as we know, being teachers, and because the statistics show it, the larger the kids' vocabulary lexicon, their personal lexicon is, the better their reading comprehension is going to be. And then our scores are going to go up, their academic learning is going to go increase and go out the roof, and we're just going to be all proud of our kids and proud of what we do.
Rolling in that star.
Rolling in it, yes, okay. So any of these methods can be used. I want to get back to the first one that we talked about, because because that cognate thing made me remember. I want to tell you about this. All right, presenting a student-friendly explanation. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, we want to use and sometimes our brains are tired, it's the end of the day, and we're trying to get our lesson plan written. It would be a lot easier if we just had a dictionary to go to, one that had student-friendly explanations in it. And some of those would be ones that are useful for EL students. So a dictionary that is good for the EL students. They break it down into easy, student-friendly words. And I meant to put that on here, but I have a link to a website that I will give you that has their student-friendly
online dictionary.
EL online dictionary, yeah. So I thought that was interesting. So I wanted to make sure I told you about that.
I've seen those.
You what?
I think I've seen those.
I've not.
Yeah.
I always look up the Webster stuff, and it's not really all that student-friendly.
It's you can get during the STAR. Some of the kids, if they qualify, can get one of those.
Oh, okay. So we have some here in the building. I'm not even sure. I didn't even know if we had any here in the building.
We're supposed to have some.
Okay. All right. So again, any of these methods can be used to convey the meanings of words to students. And because this book, as I said, has empowered me, I really feel, and I'm not just saying this. I'm not just saying this because I'm giving this presentation. I'm not just saying this because I feel like I have to. I really feel empowered after reading this. In fact, today, when I was giving my instruction on expository elements, there were a couple words on that list that we had gotten from our content coordinator, and I thought, I don't have to teach this to this kid at this point. They're not mature enough for this particular word. So I said, I'm empowering myself to not teach this word. I didn't say that out loud. But in my mind, I said, and I felt good about it. I thought, they don't need to know that. They might need it in 8th grade or high school, but right now, they don't need that term, that word, and so I just didn't teach it, and I felt good. And it's not going to interfere with their learning in any way at this point in their education. So again, this book empowered me as a teacher, and I hope that I've conveyed to you the same, and that if you choose to use more than one of these methods at a time, you can, because that's probably, it's almost like what I teach in expository writing. Here's your different structures, but at any one time, you're probably going to use 2 or 3 of these structures in any expository essay. So for teaching these words, getting these meanings across to the students, you're probably going to use more than one of these methods in doing that. So you're going to do what's best for your kids. Again, you guys are the ones that know the kids. We know them best. We know what they need. So I just feel awesome about that. Are there any questions? Do you have any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment
Okay.
that I was thinking about, you know how you said to make like the checklist? That could be, like you could replace that in like the Frere model.
Yes.
Like that could be one of the boxes instead of drawing a picture.
Yes.
Or
You know what? Yes, that
something.
Frere model was supposed to be the all
End all be all.
end all be all to learning vocabulary, but I thought it was kind of difficult too. But there was a place for it. It said examples and non-examples, but sometimes it's really hard to come up with non-examples because it's just not a necessary thing. Like I don't know. Think of a word.
Independent clause. Maybe the non-example could be an
A
dependent
dependent
clause.
clause.
While she was writing,
Right. Okay. But
could
yes.
be a non-example of an independent clause.
I like that in the Frere box where it has the definition.
Have a checkbox.
Yeah, have the checkbox.
Maybe instead of one of the things, I don't know what they are, the picture, the word, the definition, and then
Yeah. Right.
something else.
So maybe we can do this in our next planning session when we get together for our next unit. We can do this. That'd be awesome. So, all right, cool. Any other questions?
Did Charlie and Anita?
Anita?
Did they talk about sentence stems at all? Using sentence stems with vocab words or?
Not in this particular section. They did not. Okay. So, but in the developing lessons, they do use sentence stems there. Yeah. So there was a lot of different strategies like the ASOT and the Sidelets stuff that I saw little bits and pieces of it. Yes, coming here. So again, this is just. It seems like all these things kind of run together.
The same stuff, different point of view.
Yes. Yeah, and it's always the same thing, but somebody takes it and applies a new name to it and writes a new book about it.
Puts a different spin on it.
Yes, puts a different spin on it, and then we bring it into our school and use it because again, it's the new end all be all. And we find that a lot of it's the same stuff that we used to do, only with a new name attached to it. But yes, so like this, the vocabulary. I mean, a lot of these things we knew how to do.
Yeah.
But again, it was just seeing it in writing and hearing it again from somebody that has the credentials that these two have.
Like research.
Yes, and
Back
have
it up.
yes, and have research to back it. I just thought that was what empowered me. I really enjoyed that. So you can borrow my book anytime you want, and again, I'll get those websites for the dictionaries out to you guys. And do you have any other questions?
What about like SPED? Amy, do you have any questions about SPED in relation to vocab? And like, what could you do for like SPED? Like Amy's a SPED teacher. What could she?
It does help with like the prefix and
Yes,
the suffix,
breaking those
because
words
I'm
down
really
into those
working on
small
that.
parts.
Yes.
I like to use the word
Otherwise,
morphemes.
It just they don't connect.
Yes.
And then when you start to break it down, they really do start to connect. And okay, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so we
Because
definitely have
otherwise
to break
it's
out
overwhelming when
the.
they're trying to read, and it's hard for them to read. But when they can read little bits and then put it together, then it does make more sense to them.
Yes.
There's a lot of them struggling with reading.
I think we really need to bring back breaking the words down. Like today, I had a word. Whatever, superb.
Mm-hmm.
And because we had last week our prefix was super, and the kids could only think of superpower, Superman. And I'm like, well, super means higher or up. And I mean, yes, a Superman or a superpower is a greater, power or a greater type of man. But what about the word superb? Like, what does superb mean to you? And they're like, well, we've never heard of the word superb. And I'm like, okay, well, what word does it have in it? What's the prefix? And they're like, super. And I'm like, but it doesn't really sound like super. It's not superb.
Superb.
It's superb. And, well, what does super mean? Well, high, above. And I'm like, okay, so what if I said, Joel is superb at basketball. He made half the shots in last week's game. And you know that super means high or above or greater. What can you assume that super means? And they're like, oh, really good? I'm like, yes. So, I feel like we should break down the words more, like really piece them together more, and just, I don't know, get more more out of each word, because like, I feel like if it's more than 5 letters long, a lot of them just,
They get overwhelmed.
they just get overwhelmed.
And that goes along with the whole word family. I think it's important to teach, when you teach one word, like that one, super for instance. All right, today I was talking about a different way, one of the text structures for expository, and it was descriptive.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I said, so if you're writing a descriptive paragraph, what are you going to be doing? And it was almost like pulling teeth to get them to say the word describe.
Yes.
So it was really difficult for them to translate
Connect.
descriptive
with
to describe or connect those two. So I think maybe teaching the derivatives
Yeah.
of words when we teach them one word to say, what other words do we know that look like this?
Yeah.
So this might be a part of a modified Freyer
Yeah.
model that we could use as well.
Checklist, and then like one of the boxes could be what other words look like this.
Yes. What are some derivatives? And then we teach them the derivative.
Yeah, we teach
And
them
some
what the word
derivatives of derivative.
means.
Derive. Yeah. What other words can you derive from this? Yes. All right. So again, those are really, really good points. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping that with this, it will also kind of bring us together in our PLCs as well, with being on the same page. If we're all in agreement with the fact that we need to be more explicit in our vocabulary instruction, that will bring our list of vocabulary words that we think are important for this particular unit together, and then we can discuss how much time do you think we need to spend on this instruction for this word, or these are the words that our teachers tell us that we have to teach. Which one of these words do you think that we need to spend explicit instruction on, or an expanded amount of time to teach, or which ones do you think we could just breeze through? And it still might be different for each particular class, because some of us teach advanced, some of us teach regular, and then a lot of us have lower sped kids. So it still might be different, but if we're on the same page and we're making sure that we address these particular vocabulary words in each one of our units, then I feel like we
Be on the
can,
same page, and
yes, and we can,
make sure all of our kids know what they should need to know going into 7th grade.
yes, yeah. And then that goes along with that whole vertical alignment too. What do they need to know? Are we filling any gaps that they may have
Yes.
formed in from elementary school? We're making sure that they have those gaps closed to the knowledge of those vocabulary words too, so that we can send them off to 7th grade, and the teachers are going to be so impressed with us. Where did these kids come from? Look at this vocabulary. So you guys are amazing. I thank you so much for being here, and if you have any questions about vocabulary, I feel like I'm just the end-all be-all of knowledge with it. So appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Johnny, go Johnny!